Top of the morning to you, ladies. My name is Jacksepticeye. I am back. And turns out so is Mossbag. After the launch of Hollow Knight Silksong and before we get the glorious DLC, which hopefully we get an announcement soon because it's been 2 whole months, Team Cherry. What the fuck? This video, the somewhat complete lore of Hollow Knight Silksong, is probably the most anticipated thing to come out of the Silksong community. People were dying for this video to launch. This thing right here is the second coming of Skong, and a simple search of Silksong lore will yield many results. Some videos getting quite a lot of views, quite a lot of attention. Very nice. My boy CC right there. But this Mossbag, this is the holy grail. I haven't seen this. I want to watch it for the first time here on video, but as always, I'm not gonna just sit quiet and just stare at the camera like a dumb idiot. I hate those kind of reaction videos, so there'll be a lot of pausing, a lot of me saying my thoughts and feelings about the lore of the game and what Mossbag is saying. So again, if you want just a stress-free, commentary-free version of this video without an idiot blabbering in your mouth, I recommend checking out this video. Subscribe to Mossbag and Primacon while you're at it. Let's just jump into it. This is gonna be a little weird because the lore of Silksong is quite more clearer than Hollow Knight. I was very confused with the Hollow Knight's lore. Not so much in Silksong, so I wonder if I'll learn something new here that I haven't already deduced to myself.
Oi.
Let's see, what the fuck was that?
Oi.
Shit, who is that? Oh no! That's the caretaker! That's the caretaker! See? Already! Primacon's on top of this game.
Ever since its release back in September of 2025, people have been debating what the plot of Hollow Knight Silksong even was. Why were all those bugs obsessed with their pilgrimage to the Citadel?
They're stupid.
Who were those mysterious figures who seem to be running the place? And just who exactly is this character? Why is everyone saying her name is Hornet and calling her a spider and a worm?
It's horny, actually. Get it right.
When she doesn't look like any of those things.
True.
This video intends to answer a good 70% of these questions. We will ascend through the land of Farloom, dissecting the game's dialogue and world in an attempt to wrangle a more complete understanding of Team Cherry's Metroidvania masterpiece. But with how recent this game is, please keep in mind that the theories shared here might be lacking a sort of refinement you would expect from deep dive lore videos about other, less recent video game releases. Also, please don't take everything I say in this video as gospel. I am just one of many people with theories.
Yeah, okay, Mossbag. Yeah, we're not gonna take anything in this video as gospel. Sure, right. This video is undeniable proof of the Silksong lore, and everything he says is the word of God. He is our prophet.
Nothing makes my words more inherently correct.
It does.
So don't just automatically believe me when I say stuff like when the slab was built, or that the earth is round,
I will believe that
now
too.
is actually a really good time to be investing in Ethereum.
Let me get my wallet.
Oh, and this video will contain massive spoilers, not only for Hollow Knight Silksong, but also Hollow Knight.
Good
in
old
fact,
Hollow Knight.
You kind of need to know a lot about Hollow Knight's story to really appreciate the story in Silksong. So if you need to
that's so true, man. Imagine you get to the red memory, but Silksong is the first Team Cherry game you have played. It just would not hit the same.
refresher on Hollow Knight's lore, be sure to check out my Hollow Knight lore video first. This video also contains massive spoilers for the hit 2004 film, Shrek the Third. So if you need a refresher on Shrek the Third's lore, be sure to check out my Shrek the Third lore video first.
That's gonna be the next reaction video.
Somewhat complete lore of Silksong.
Let's go,
The story of Silksong begins with Silk. More specifically, Grandmother Silk, a higher being described as the primal source of all silk. Silk in the world of Silksong is spun from the soul of its creator, and has the power to heal wounds, extend life, and weave powerful runes. Grandmother Silk is also described as a pale being. What exactly are pale beings?
Wait, she is?
Some might have you believe they are great beings, worthy of praise above all others.
Yeah.
But Hornet wouldn't necessarily agree with that assessment. While pale beings are immensely powerful, they don't always have the best intentions at heart. Pale beings are usually mainly interested in total subjugation from the bugs living beneath them. Hornet, a bug who
Maybe. I feel like that's more of a worm thing to do. That primal urge to conquer or build kingdoms. I don't think Grandma Silk is a worm. She's a pale being, but that's interesting.
is half pale being from her father, the Pale King, explains. Devotion or destruction. These are the only fates my kind allow. And Hornet doesn't hold the pale beings in her life in particularly high regard.
Yeah,
she calls
true.
her father, the Pale King, a fool in the Wings Mold Hunter's journal entry.
Wait, really? A false fly with a rune etched shell, a torture mix of soul cage and void, a crude construct of my father's fallen domain. Only a fool believes that void can be something in there. Okay. Wow, I did not read all the journal entries in my playthrough, clearly. Wow. Hornet calling her dad a beta. Great.
She
Good
calls
lore.
her father, the Pale King, a fool in the Wingsmold Hunter's journal entry. And she
Interesting.
admonishes his wife, the White Lady, inside the Red Memory. So yeah, Hornet complains about
She what? Dude, Mossbag is dropping bombshells on me. That's not the vibe I got from the scene. I thought she was on pretty good terms with the White Lady, but hey,
Lady
if Mossbag says
inside
so.
the Red Memory. So yeah, Hornet complains about pale beings in her diary and also gets into arguments with them in her head, which sounds pathetic, but she really does have a point. But this desire for control among pale beings was no different for Grandmother Silk. We don't know exactly when or how, but at some point in the past, she appeared in the land of Farloom. And while we don't know the exact timeline, we do know her arrival led to the decline of other nearby civilizations.
Of course.
One such civilization was an order of blade bugs and hunters, ruled by Crust King Khan.
Still the biggest disappointment of the whole fucking game. Nothing comes even close, that we didn't get a proper coral area to explore. Instead we got the fucking shitty gauntlets. God damn
At the
it.
height of their rule, Khan's order occupied half of the lands of Farloom.
What?
It seems Khan and his warriors were one of the last groups left to stand against Grandmother Silk's influence.
Really?
But by the time Hornet arrives in Farloom, Khan's kingdom has been all but forgotten, and his lands eroded by sand. Another group taking up residence in the land of Farloom was the Scar, a tribe of ants united in service under the powerful warrior Queen Scarsinger Carmelita.
True.
While Hornet can still find members of the Scar tribe during her time in Farloom, they seem lost without a true nest, and uncertain if the song they hear is still Carmelita's. Carmelita herself can still be found, but her form has withered, her power faded by time. Judging by her withered body, she appears to be about 28 or even 29 years old.
Of course she does.
Another force
Also, will Mossbag explain why she looks so much bigger in real life than she did in her dream?
in Farloom is Nihilith, a plant-like being responsible for sowing the first seed, which would eventually grow into the region of Farloom known as Shellwood. While Nihilith is gone by the time Hornet arrives in Farloom, Shellwood is still filled with life, not fully snuffed out by Grandmother Silk's influence.
Interesting.
On the eastern border of Farloom was the land of Verdania, home to twin princes. In a bid to avoid destruction by Grandmother Silk's kingdom, one of the princes gave his life as tribute. But these actions proved futile, as Verdania fell to ruin anyway, leaving the land as
Oh, he gave his life. I always just assumed he was taken. Okay. Very interesting. So we got Khan, which he controlled, I guess, 50% of Farloom, as Mossbag says. Then we got the Queen tribe with the Ant Queen. We got Nihilith. She perished. We don't know how. And then we got Verdania with the two princes. Interesting. Oh, fuck if I know. I guess I had no clue about most of the lore of Silksong.
nothing but barren caverns by the time Hornet finds them.
And it starts
In
growing
addition
back.
to these different groups within Farloom, there was also a town far above on the surface.
Yeah.
When Hornet visits this town in-game, however, it is completely abandoned. Playing her needle in near one of the few remaining corpses reveals the following dialogue. Friends seduced. Sweet promises whispered.
Okay.
Grieving ones beckon. It seems the residents of this town were drawn down into Farloom by the actions of the Weavers, Grandmother Silk's spider children. Much like their mother, these spiders could produce powerful silk from within their shells.
Right.
And they even devised various tools and charms as well. Hornet herself is the child of one of these weavers,
Hera the Beast.
Hera the Beast. As for why Hera looks so different from the rest of the weavers, the game never really explains. She's just a weaver that doesn't look like a weaver, similar to how there are humans who just don't look like humans. Either way, all this means that Farloom was actually Hornet's ancestral home, tying her to the land much more deeply than she initially realizes.
Right.
But what exactly were the Weavers doing in Farloom in this time long before the birth of Hornet? And what were these sweet promises they whispered to the bugs of the land? The answer to that question would be the Citadel of Song, an eternal city that has long been drawing in pilgrims from the lands below, compelling them to follow the holy path through the lands of Farloom in hopes of basking and singing in its shining light.
That's interesting, because what the Pale King promised the bugs of Hallownest was higher thought, right? That was the whole thing. So, like, did the bugs here already have higher thought?
Pilby, the little pilgrim, explains, "Our holy land calls on us. To journey up is our greatest task. Who are we to refuse? Guided by faith, we climb through flaming fields, across rolling moors, and up great gilded steps, all to reach that eternal, shining citadel.
Why though?
Even when Hornet arrives in Farloom, the call of the citadel still pulls in pilgrims. As the chapel maid explains, even now, in Farloom's long decline, the simple bugs, they're witless before it. Too grand, too majestic, too powerful.
So it's just the allure
One
of
possible
it?
example of how the Weavers pulled in pilgrims was through the creation of these bells, located in bell shrines all throughout Farloom. When Hornet rings one in Songclave, the caretaker admonishes her, saying, "That bell is rung out far and wide. The wretched and the lost will have heard its call. They'll be making their way here now."
Right.
This exact same bell design can be found near a workbench in Weavenest Atla, indicating that these bells were designed by the Weavers,
I never noticed
possibly
that.
as a tool to help draw pilgrims to the holy path to the Citadel. Bugs arriving at the Citadel of Song were tasked to join the holy song. Deep within the Whispering Vaults, Hornet can find Pious Isamor, a giant statue of a pilgrim. While some of Isamor's dialogue is fractured, it seems to be telling pilgrims arriving at the Citadel that their true service can now commence, that service being to raise their voices in song. Pilgrims arriving at the Citadel could become members of the choir. Devoted members could even rise to the ranks of chorister, reed, and grand reed. They all joined in to see the Citadel's holy song sustained. But hidden beneath the beauty of the Citadel is a cruel system of subjugation designed to trap bugs into a life of endless toil. As Hornet explains, these poor bugs, all are victim of the Citadel and its insidious attraction. This place draws them up into its maw, only to consume them utterly. A good example of this can be found in the Underworks.
So it's basically like the modern American dream, right? They're alluded to, you go to college, you get a beautiful degree, you get this amazing high-paying job with benefits, and then you go through all of that, people drawn to it, and then all you end up is crippling debt and a fucking 9 to 5 minimum wage bullshit job that's not even enough to pay your rent. That's what this guy looks like right here on screen right now. I see. Grandma Silk is a fucking filthy capitalist.
Bugs are forced to work down there in inhumane conditions, being forced to spend
It's basically Amazon.
They have every single time they want to rest at a bench. There's a rosary
fucking Grandma Silk was Jeff Bezos all along.
Operated confessional for bugs to use.
Yeah,
but
that was
the
funny.
message it gives is automated and tells the bugs that their sin must be cleansed by working harder.
No, they got ChatGPT therapy in the Citadel. No.
You can see this mindset internalized by Loam, a bug endlessly running on a treadmill, believing that the Citadel will eventually reward him for his hard work.
Which it does. I just didn't run on the treadmill long enough in my Let's Play, but apparently if you do, it shoots out a single rosary. It's so fucking funny, man.
Not rest. Us works and Citadel breeds, and them's above do sing, and all is right. And when us works enough, them sees it. Them sees it, and us gets us holy reward. Hornet can actually help Loam work by running on a nearby treadmill. After 45 seconds or so of running, a single rosary might pop out of the device, further illustrating how the faith of these bugs is exploited for labor. Another example of a bug fully buying into the Citadel's religion is the Old Penitent. The Old Penitent is a bug locked away in the Slab, a prison complex built to punish those convicted of sinning against the Citadel. But the Old Penitent doesn't view his situation that way, saying to Hornet, "Prisoner? I understand you not. There is no prison here. This is a holy place of forgiveness. Please, speak with reverence." Even after being freed by Hornet, he refuses to leave, saying, "By the grace of the Citadel, I am here as a penitent. Here I can hide from the shame of my sins, until they are withered away by time."
Holy shit, brainwashing goes deep in this society. Damn, Grandma Silk.
"Leave this place? Please, strike me down dead before you speak such blasphemy again." The Old Penitent also has the following Needleland dialogue. "From wastes, from darkness, drawn down, blessed call. Sisters, accord. Silence above."
Interesting.
This dialogue seems to indicate that the Old Penitent was one of the bugs
from
the
the
nameless
surface.
town above.
Right.
He was drawn into Farloom by whispered promises, and found himself locked away in a prison cell he can never leave.
Right.
But the cruelty of the Slab doesn't just end with the prisoners. Even the jailers are trapped here. The Old Penitent explains, they too are penitents. In a past age, that caste committed their own sacrilege against the Citadel. a sin long forgotten, but so grave that their offspring and the
offspring
of their
carry the guilt
offspring
of the... Yeah, I
carry
remember
the
reading
guilt
this
with them
dialogue.
still.
Right,
to serve here is their only hope of absolution.
Right.
The fate of the Guardflies makes clear that the Citadel is just about using guilt and sin as justifications to force bugs into endless servitude.
Wow, man, this game really is real, huh? All the evils of the fucking religious churches, capitalism, it's all there. Damn Team Cherry.
Dude, Hornet is generally a fairly nice person, always trying to help people and do the right thing, but even she has no sympathy for the Guardflies and genuinely wants them all dead.
Damn!
She's like me with grubs.
Yeah!
Given what can happen to Hornet during the events of Silksong, I can't really say that I'm surprised she feels this way.
Yeah, fair
Hornet
enough.
even hopes that killing the matriarch of the jailers, Broodmother, will end their race for good.
No, it doesn't.
But if she returns to the Broodmother arena, and turns out a new broodling has already appeared to carry on the species.
She should have stabbed it right there.
But for some reason, the game won't let Hornet kill the baby.
Exactly!
This is an example of ludonarrative dissidence.
What?
But these aren't the only bugs born into a special kind of service. The Squirm of the Blasted Steppes were seemingly chosen by the Citadel to act as judges of the pilgrims approaching the Grand Gate. The lore tablet just outside a Squirm nest reads, "Bug born of Farloom, you have been chosen. May our Citadel's holy gilding harden your soft shell. Stand eternal as our arbiter, that no bug-bearing sin shall step within our sacred halls."
How do they judge
plays
that?
The needle in for the Squirm found here, they will beautifully sing, "Let's grow holy. Let's grow stronger. We are chosen. All are chosen. We will serve. All will serve." It seems from birth these creatures are brainwashed by the Citadel into believing that they are doing holy work by using a mallet to brutally bash in the heads of any pilgrim they happen to think is guilty of sin. Similarly,
they're just giving them like a power trip, you know? They took their own people to guard against them, like people of Farloom, and just like gave them a fucking power trip. Damn! Team Cherry, are you okay?
Found in the Whispering Vaults are literally raised in dark vaults and then forced to become scroll readers for the Vault Keepers. Unlike the Broodling, Hornet can kill the baby Squirm and Vaultborn, so hopefully Team Cherry will patch the game so you can actually kill this thing.
Yeah,
but the Citadel's system of cruelty didn't just stop with the borders of the Citadel itself. The bugs underneath also fell victim to its whims.
Deep docks.
One such area affected by the Citadel is Greymoor. According to Krull and Benjin, the two best characters in the game, Greymoor used to grow all sorts of food. But at some point, the Citadel ordered these bugs to instead dedicate themselves to catching the silk dregs that drifted down from the Citadel and re-spool them. As a result, the bugs of Greymoor had to resort to a less involved form of farming, breeding muckroaches for their disgusting roach guts. The smog and exhaust of
that's a good Team Cherry. That's a good parallel to British colonialism. See, that's what the Britishers did. They would invade countries like mine, force the farmer to abandon all the food crops and instead grow what we learned in school as cash crops, and then export that shit back to England, which would result in big famines, but great profit for the crown. Again, very nice callback, Team Cherry. I like it. Let's go back a little bit.
Breeding muckroaches for their disgusting roach guts.
Well, they seem to like it.
The smog and exhaust of the Citadel was rerouted using the exhaust organ and dumped into current-day biowater, polluting the region and incurring the hatred of the Stillkin, a faction of swamp dwellers skilled in trap setting. Now, I know a lot of you watching this are huge fans of biowater.
Oh, yeah.
And of course I am too. But in the lore, the creation of biowater should be seen as a bad thing.
Okay.
The Citadel even turned on their own warriors. There once was an order of pin-wielding maidens known as the Pinstresses. As the last remaining member of the cast, hidden away at the edge of the Blasted Steppes, explains, "Our Grand Citadel learnt well from the training of Pinterest's past. Then it went and turned those teachings upon us. Despite our superior skills, our numbers have always been few, and their strength overwhelmed. Of my once revered order, only 2 of us remain, wormed away in Farloom's forgotten corners. And my Pin sibling, she's lost herself to more peaceable pursuits."
That's the seamstress. So, like, they asked these pinstresses to train the Citadel cast, but then they got overwhelmed by their numbers?
The only other living member, Seamstress, has given up her violent past, instead turning to stitching and sewing. But the decommissioned automaton near her home indicates that she was indeed a powerful warrior at some point. A third Pinstress can be found in the putrefied ducks, but she's long dead by the time Hornet finds her.
Right.
It's not clear why the Citadel targeted these women. Perhaps by the time Hornet...
Someone pointed that out in my Let's Play video, like, this is another torn-up Pinterest tent. That was pretty cool.
Finds her. It's not clear why the Citadel targeted these women. Perhaps their strength was viewed as a threat to the Citadel's order.
Could be.
I mean, who wouldn't be afraid of this absolute beast? Bugs from the Forge home were requested to relocate to the Deep Docks under the promise of holy esteem from the Citadel. And bugs of the Deep Docks that were not fulfilling their duties were punished by four brothers Cygnus and Gron, although the extent of all this is unknown. The Citadel demanded everything they possibly could of these bugs, even trying to deny them death itself. A bulletin board located in a Ventrica station reads, due to unacceptably high injury and unsanctioned deaths, Ventrica travel shall henceforth be denied to all. For Farloom Eternal, a bug who serves must never die. The Citadel doesn't want its bugs to die, not out of any concern for the bugs themselves, but because dead bugs can't serve the Citadel. All of the Citadel's cruelty was in service to continuing its song eternally. But what exactly is this song the Citadel is making pilgrims sing?
This was my next
and
question.
What does any of this have to do with Grandmother Silk?
Right. This is very parallel to keeping like the nightmare heart alive, for example, to keep it beating. Like, they have to follow this vicious cycles of sons eating their father, and then keeping the cycle going on, basically. The nightmare heart shall beat on. So I wonder what purpose the song serves to Grandma Silk. Why must she enslave an entire population just so the song must go on? Brainwash them, enslave them? What's the meaning of the song? Let's see.
None of these pilgrims even mention her. To answer these questions, we have to talk about the Citadel's true purpose, that of a cage. Maskmaker explains this for us in no uncertain terms. At one point, Hornet can say to him, "You speak of the Citadel. Its former function has failed, but I can still sense its purpose, some. It is church and cage both." To which Maskmaker replies, "Aye, devised by your ancestors, that monstrosity, and their wicked, clever minds. A system, or a web they'd likely call it. A way to keep their mother sealed in slumber, and themselves free to lavish in their false rule." With this dialogue interaction, we know that the Citadel itself was actually a system devised by Hornet's ancestors,
the Weavers,
as a way to keep Grandmother Silk trapped in slumber. This is alluded to in the poem displayed at the beginning of the game, Farloom's Folly. The poem reads, "They see your beauty, so frail and fine. They see your peace,
that makes so much
woven of
sense
faith
now!
and toil. They forget your heart, bound in slumber and servitude. When you wake, they shall see your truth, a beast's nature bare to all."
So is Grandma Silk, her intention wasn't evil? Like the Weavers wanted to rule falsely? So are the Weavers evil bastards?
This poem is specifically about the relationship between the inhabitants of Farloom and Grandmother Silk.
Yeah.
The first line describes how the bugs of Farloom perceive Grandmother Silk's beauty. This might be referring to her silk, or the fact that Grandmother Silk fuels the existence of the Citadel. The second line emphasizes that Grandmother Silk is only a piece due to the faith and toil displayed by the bugs of the Citadel. The third line states that Grandmother Silk is bound in slumber and servitude. We can see this clearly when visiting the cradle at the top of the Citadel. Grandmother Silk can be found here, sleeping inside a giant cocoon of silk. Underneath this cocoon, we can see that several strands of silk have been pulled out in parallel. The bugs of the Citadel have constructed a giant loom to extract the precious silk from their sleeping monarch. They have even made this image of the cocoon inside a crook the symbol of their entire kingdom. But the last two lines of Farloom's Folly tell us that Grandmother Silk's subjugation won't last forever, and once she awakens, the bugs of Farloom will have to face her true, beastly form. I wonder if this will be important later.
Probably not.
It seems this slumber was achieved through the song sung by the pilgrims of the Citadel. Inside the Whispering Vaults, Hornet can find the corpse of the Vault's pontiff, accompanied by a sacred psalm cylinder, a device containing the melody of the Vault Keepers. Vault Keeper Cardenius explains, "Only our pontiff lived long and low within our vault. They held the melody, jealously, covetously, a learning for the highest Vault Keeper, and them alone. A truth they were told to have found, there in the dark, something within the melody or the words, something to set them silent." We're never explicitly told what that melody contains, but playing the needle in near the pontiff's corpse reveals the following messages. "Damned bugs. We prayed a cage. We sang your chains. Divine silk." This indicates that the songs and prayers of the Citadel were actually designed to imprison Grandmother Silk. And this truth was hidden from the bugs of the Citadel. This appears to be corroborated by the Weaver lore tablet located near the Weaver corpse spire in Moss Home, which reads,
So it looks like the Weavers are against Grandma Silk.
"Sister, spider, husk bound to moss, watch over these bugs born low, raised up by fervor fostered, born and caught within our web unknowing. The
Right,
pilgrims weren't even aware of Grandmother Silk's existence.
Right.
Instead, it was the weavers that were seen as holy. Weaver effigies found throughout the land show that the pilgrims prayed to the weavers, viewing them as graceful, blessed, and even divine. Even by the time Hornet arrives in Farloom, massive burial spires dedicated to the weaver corpses can still be found, with plaques built by the pilgrims stating that they offer song to the weavers eternal. Even some of the inhabitants of the citadel hold deference to Hornet, referring to her as a first child. But why exactly did the weavers turn on Grandmother Silk in the first place?
Good question.
Was she just a really callous and cruel monarch, similar to Lord Farquaad in the 2001 hit film Shrek 1? Our best glimpse into what...
So wait. So Grandma Silk is the one who basically, I don't know, took control of Farloom and then the weavers turned on her?
life looked like for the weavers while living under Grandmother Silk is from the memory of Widow, the only weaver still alive in Farloom by the start of the game.
What
After
an
defeating
incredible
her, we see a memory
boss
of the
fight.
weavers playing harps as Grandmother Silk watches over them. The following dialogue then appears on screen. For her light, eternal. Our song sustains. We know that Grandmother Silk does want song, as the Silk Heart memory in Whiteboard says the following lines. Their voices, their song, to devote, eternal.
Okay.
They are ours, bound forever. So before the Citadel, the Weavers had to sustain song for the monarch eternally. The Weavers must have felt trapped in this system and decided to create the Citadel, using a new song to put Grandmother Silk to sleep and enthrall the pilgrims of Farloom in their fake religion. Through this action, the Weavers not only obtained freedom from sustaining the eternal song, but they also came to perceive themselves as the rulers of Farloom.
Gotcha.
The harps the Weavers first played the eternal song on for Grandmother Silk can still be found in the cradle, fallen completely into disuse. A thread memory of Widow can be found here, likely because she is the only Weaver still loyal to Grandmother Silk, but we'll talk about her more later. Aside from Widow...
Man, this is really way more complex than I initially gave it credit for. Wow, when I started the video, I was like, yeah, I get the story. It's not that complicated. What the fuck? What game did I play? Holy shit. That's so interesting.
Another Weaver Hornet sort of meets is a being known as First Sinner.
What a boss
Weaver's lore
fight.
is also very difficult to make sense of, but seems relevant to our current discussion.
Yeah.
First Sinner can be found locked away in a cage sealed with runes. Inside the cage, a Weaver corpse can be found. She offers to bind her strength to Hornets, but unlike the other corpses, this action actually awakens First Sinner, who tries to murder Hornet.
Enough.
However,
Fabulous
this fight appears
dress.
to take place in some kind of memory, as opposed to in real life.
Yep.
Since dying in this fight doesn't spawn a cocoon. So it seems First Sinner is just a memory here, not actually alive. If First Sinner is defeated, Hornet witnesses a memory from her revealing the true nature of the Weavers. It seems Grandmother Silk actually evolved the Weavers from Farlids, common bugs found in Farloom. First Sinner reflects on this revelation, saying, "She called us daughters. She called us divine.
She lied.
She lied."
Right. So she made the Weavers, but then the purpose of the Weavers was just to sing the eternal song on their harps. And then the Weavers got sick of it, so they made a citadel and made a fake religion, put the Grandma Silks in slumber, and then ruled over Farloom. And the citizens of Farlooms never even knew about Grandma Silk. What the fuck, dude?
Mentions that the Farlids remind her of herself in some way. First Sinner's rage seems to be a mixture of feeling cursed with silk, given to her by Grandmother Silk, and being cursed to know the truth of her nature.
Right.
We also know she had the power to weave silk into blazing runes, which she uses extensively in her fight. As a side note, in the game's code and concept art for First Sinner, she is referred to as First Weaver. So perhaps First Sinner remembers the truth about the Weaver's origins, because she was the first Farlid to ever be transformed. So why was First Sinner locked up? The tablet placed over the cage says the following. Penitent, first of the first, guilty of the sin of apostasy.
What does
Penance by
apostasy
constriction.
mean?
Apostasy.
Absolution denied. One possibility is that First Sinner is the catalyst that set off the Weavers turning against Grandmother Silk.
That's
Perhaps
a good
she was
theory.
imprisoned by Grandmother Silk for calling her a liar and revealing her secret, and this convinced the other Weavers to turn on her too. At one point, First Sinner mentions, "Our Silk, our rage," perhaps implying that she led the first resistance group against Grandmother Silk. This interpretation gives us a good motive for why the Weavers turned on Grandmother Silk, but I have a few issues with it. We are told the Citadel was devised by the Weavers,
Yeah.
and describing First Sinner as a penitent feels very much in line with the Citadel. They are the ones who came up with the entire Faith and Toil system,
True.
not Grandmother Silk. Second, if Grandmother Silk chained up First Sinner, why is she still chained up now?
Yeah, wouldn't
Why
she be
wasn't
freed by the Weavers?
Or given
Yeah.
a proper
Yeah.
burial?
Mhm.
Third, we see the Citadel sigil, the silk cocoon, on the cage itself,
True.
further supporting that this cage was created by the
Seems like she was imprisoned by the Weavers themselves, but that would also make no sense.
Citadel. I think it makes more sense to say First Sinner was imprisoned by her fellow Weavers.
Exactly.
In this case, the sin of apostasy committed by First Sinner was claiming the Weavers weren't divine. This revelation would have been devastating to the Weavers' control of Farloom. They needed to be seen as divine by the Pilgrims, so they decided to seal First Sinner away. Regardless of what
Clever, Mossback. That makes so much sense. Dude, wow. The Silksong's lore just got fucking blown wide open for me. I thought this game's lore was so much more simpler than Hollow Knight. I was fucking wrong.
whether or not they even believed her.
Damn.
I think this explanation ties in better with the information we have to work with. As for the "our rage" line, it seems First Sinner is mimicking a lot of the dialogue found near other Weaver corpses. All the other Weavers say, "our silk, our memory,"
Right.
not "our rage." First Sinner also calls Farloom accursed instead of haunted, and she kind of lies to Hornet about letting her bind her. So I think some of First Sinner's dialogue can be explained by her being a bit deceiving, compared to her sisters, who are a bit more straightforward about what they want from Hornet.
Could be.
Alternatively, our rage could imply other Weavers join First Sinner's anger.
I was just about to say, I was like, maybe it could mean that she had kind of a following, like a growing following, because I doubt that no one in the entire Weaver population wanted to, like, admit the truth and be on her side. So maybe as soon as the Weavers noticed that there was this kind of growing uprising that could be brought upon because of this First Sinner, they imprisoned her.
Also imprisoned by the Weavers running the Citadel. Overall, I think First Sinner's fate is a reflection of just how far the Weavers will go to cling onto their rule of Farloom.
True.
They would much rather imprison one of their own kin than admit the fact that they aren't divine beings.
Right.
Perhaps that was the only choice they had to keep the web of the Citadel from
And I wonder where this will all tie up to the Weavers in Hallownest. Huh.
collapsing. Regardless, it seems the Weaver's reign over the Citadel was not destined to last. We know at some point control of the Citadel was handed over to the Citadel bugs. Conductor Balador tells us this explicitly when he says, "The mantle of rule, claimed greedily from Farloom's fading first children, those bitter Weavers.
Claimed greedily.
It was yoke, not crown." In Balador's possession is a rune harp, an ancient Weaver recording instrument containing the last words of the Weavers, which reads, "Sisters, spiders, the burden is past. These simple bugs shall bear it in full. Never to cease, never to silence. We shall die and wait and pray that one may come of silken strength enough to weave us free." This record
So I wonder why they died. What, did they just die out of natural causes? Because, like, because Grandma Silk is what was converting them from the random little bugs, right? So I doubt the Weavers could, No, but the Weavers could reproduce. Because Hornet was born of Hera and the Pale King. So why'd they die out?
and Balador's comments tell us that running the Citadel was a difficult task, and at some point the Weavers decided to flee Farloom.
Oh,
In the
they
lower
fled!
lands of Farloom, Hornet can find strange gates barring access to various weave nests. In these weave nests, it seems the Weavers schemed against Grandmother Silk. In Weave Nest Atla in Moss Grotto, Hornet can find a lore tablet that reads, "This low her gaze escaped. The
This is
pair,
where they had their
sisters,
secret
leave
meetings.
hope anew, that we might break free this accursed web born of our naive foundation." It seems at some point during their rule, it became clear to the Weavers that they could not keep Grandmother Silk
That's
trapped in
why they
slumber using
fled.
song forever.
Okay.
Instead, they would have to devise a new plan to deal with her.
Okay.
One such plan was Eva, also found in Weave Nest Atla. Eva is a strange being confined to live her life within an iron shell. She is a child of the Weavers, but created from rune and shell instead of more traditional methods. There are two other aspects regarding the nature of Weavers I have yet to mention. First of all, it seems there are only female Weavers, considering
Good
they
point.
always refer to each other saying sisters.
Good point.
This is similar to how all Labubus are female.
Oh, God.
So that's pretty cute.
No!
Second, weavers are born with a curse that makes the act of conceiving a child excruciatingly painful, rendering it a near impossible task. I was unable to find any information on if conceiving a child is excruciatingly painful for Labubus, unfortunately.
I guess if you conceived a child who's into Labubus, that's extremely painful for the parent.
As someone who also finds the act of getting pregnant extremely difficult himself, I relate a lot to the weavers here. I suspect this aspect of their nature is due to Grandmother Silk, and the idea that she made them like
So I guess my theory was kind of right, that they can't really reproduce willy-nilly, so that's why they eventually died out.
this supports the idea that she only ever wanted the weavers so they could serve her.
You're right.
You might wonder why the weavers created such a cruel system with a citadel, but it seems they didn't have the best role model.
Right.
But not all weavers were doomed to be barren. Horn explains to Eva that her mother was able to overcome the curse's limits, which sounds impressive until you remember there are dozens of little weavers running all over Deep Nest and Hollow Knight. Hopefully Team Cherry will explain exactly what's going on with these things, because as of right now, it makes me uncomfy. The weavers weren't too happy with their creation though. A rune harp found in Weaveness Atla reads, "Hide her deep, the despised child, our shame shown in shell of iron. She is a wish cast vain, divinity mimicked in form too frail." It seems Eva was an attempt by the weavers to create a divine being capable of usurping Grandmother Silk,
Okay,
but she failed to be the powerful being they had hoped for.
Right.
This is similar to the events depicted in the hit film Shrek 2, where Shrek and company created the giant gingerbread man, Mongo, who also tragically suffered from his form being too frail for the task assigned to him. Another attempt by the weavers to stop the awakening of Grandmother Silk was through the creation of the Snare Setter. One can be found in Weaveness Atla, and needle and dialogue observable there shows the weavers hoped it could be used to keep them free. Eva explains the purpose of the Snare Setter more plainly. Small things, but tests for larger forms. I still remember their thoughts as they worked, their desperation and their hunger. Another hopeless attempt to wrest their freedom. All ended in failure, of course.
Right.
In Weaveness Merglin in Bilewater, a lore tablet mentions that the weaver's silk will wane at some point, perhaps indicating that the weavers knew their power was fading. The strangest place a weave nest can be found is deep below Farloom in the Abyss. The Abyss in Farloom is very similar to the one found in Hallownest. It features the same void tendrils, a lake of void, and massive spires.
I always imagine, because like we have the Abyss in Silksong, I always imagine the Abyss is basically like an underground world, technically. Like, it's not that there's an abyss in Hallownest and there just happens to be an abyss under Farloom too. Like, maybe in this world, there's just an abyss world that's just inside the surface world. You know what I mean? Kind of like the Hollow Earth theory.
There's even hints of the ancient civilization here too. At one point, Hornet refers to the void as being below all things, perhaps indicating that no matter where you are in the world of Hollow Knight,
there you go. That's
if
what
you
I
go
just
down
said.
Far enough, you'll find the abyss.
That's what I was just
in
saying.
Weave Nest Absalom, there is evidence of the weavers researching the void. A rune depicting the void tendrils can be found, and it seems the weavers were able to collect void within glass jars. But it doesn't seem like the weavers went much further with any of their void experiments.
So all of this, right? The void experiments, Eva, the snares. So I'm guessing this was all their just, way to get their freedom, I guess. Like, were they doing all of this after Grandma Silk was already captured in the cocoon? Because they noticed that, their silk will fade and soon the cocoon won't be good enough. So they tried all these experiments. None of them fucking worked. So they fled. Or was that before the cocoon, and then cocoon was the actual successful invention that held Grandma Silk, and none of this other shit worked?
As nothing here seems to have been used against Grandmother Silk at all. In fact, it doesn't seem like any of these traps or mechanisms worked. The only thing left the weavers could do
so it was after
flee.
the...
In Weave Nest Syndrol in Farfields, hidden in a secret room, Hornet can find a map depicting pathways...
Where the fuck is that? What?
out of Farloom. The nearby rune harp reads, "Flee, sisters. Flee until your strength exhausts. So far you may escape at last her silken sight. To start anew, to sustain, free of web and service eternal."
He fucked their mom over, and then they realized, shit, I done fucked up, girls. Let's get the fuck out of Dodge. That's so funny, man.
So to briefly summarize, it seems at some point during their rule, the weavers realized they couldn't keep Grandmother Silk in
Right.
slumber indefinitely.
Right.
Whether that was because they weren't bringing in enough pilgrims, or because of their own waiting silk, or because 90% of the bugs in this kingdom can't sing for shit, it was
Probably
clear
the
something
reason.
had to be done. The weavers experimented with creating their own god, but that didn't work.
Right.
They tried to construct a tool to bind Grandmother's silk tight,
Ooh.
but that also failed. So ultimately the weavers decided to flee Farloom.
Yeah.
The only problem
Said,
was that
"Fuck
doing
him,
so
I'm
would
out."
end the Citadel's song, hastening Grandmother Silk's awakening. To combat this, the weavers decided to hand
Hand
the
it to
Citadel
the
over to the bugs themselves, tricking
right.
them with a technique we in the crypto space call a rug pull. Despite their flight, the weavers didn't entirely lose hope. It seems the weavers prayed for one of silken strength to one day come and free them from their web. A few weavers even stayed behind so that they could help this savior should they ever make their way to Farloom. The weavers also left servitors to watch over their weave nests and await their return. By the time Hornet arrives in Farloom, it seems there are three main factions in charge of running the place: the conductors, the vault keepers,
Right, so
and
that
the architects.
Oh, it's so good to put all of this in a timeline, because when I was exploring the Citadel, I just couldn't help but think like, okay, so this is a Citadel, holy Citadel for Grandma Silk or the Weavers or whatever, but this seems to have a really deep, long-running history of these like divine bugs. But these are just bugs of Farloom, so what's going on? That was one of the biggest point of confusion for me while exploring the Citadel, as I couldn't place who actually ruled, and now it makes so much sense. It was the Weavers who ruled first, and then they passed it on to the bugs. And that's why we get this shit. That's wonderful. That honestly, that's really cool. That also makes the Weavers really fucking ancient.
The game isn't exactly clear when these different factions took shape within the Citadel. It appears they've been around since before the Weavers left, given that both Vaultkeeper Cardinius and the 12th Architect seem well aware of the Weavers.
Right.
These three factions were also given the threefold melody, which pilgrims needed to reach the cradle. The conductors seem to have the most responsibility, declaring edicts, sanctioning projects, and even getting directly involved with various experiments within the Citadel. They also seem to be in the know about the Citadel's true purpose as a cage for Grandmother Silk. Given Conductor Romano's incredibly ominous poem, Farloom's Folly, as well as Conductor Ballador's possession of that one extremely incriminating rune harp. This knowledge seemed to weigh heavy on the conductors. Ballador questions if he would have ever accepted the duty if he had known the cost. And of course, Conductor Romano's poem seems to indicate a sense of disdain for the Citadel. While we never see Conductor Romano in-game, we do see a conductor's mask all the way on the edge of Farloom. Whether this was Romano's mask or not, it seems one conductor chose to flee Farloom for good instead of bearing the mantle of rule. I'll be honest,
Interesting.
I'm sure being a conductor isn't the easiest job in the world, but it's gotta be better than being the guy who has to feed maggot gruel to muckroaches all day. It's gotta be an order of magnitude more difficult, I swear. The Vault Keepers were charged.
What was that graph?
It's gotta be an order of magnitude.
What do we got here? We got prompt engineer, neurosurgeon, conductor, salad, roach keeper, and of course YouTuber. As a fellow YouTuber, I 100% confirm this evidence.
More difficult, I swear. The Vault Keepers were charged with guarding the secrets of the Citadel. The scroll readers spent their entire lives reading and memorizing prayer scrolls. They also kept psalm cylinders of various prayer songs that could be played back using the proper equipment. From Vault Keeper Cardinius' dialogue, it seems the Vault Keepers viewed the acquisition of knowledge as a way to transcend their own minds and bodies. Vault Keeper Cardinius is also interesting in that he really hates the Weavers, calling them cursed and implying that they bring death wherever they go. So
why
it's
do
possible
they...
the Vault Keepers were aware of some nefarious deeds done by the Weavers during their rule. But Chakra also calls them vicious, so it's...
I don't get it though. Why did they continue the Weaver rule after the Weavers left if they hated them so much? Was it just out of fear? Like that they will return? They probably told them that they will return, I'm guessing. That's why?
possible the views on Weavers changed all over Farloom after they left. The architects seemed tasked with maintaining changed, but Chakra also calls them vicious. So it's possible the views on Weavers changed all over Farloom after they left.
Right.
The architects seemed tasked with maintaining the Citadel itself, creating the Cogwork core, as well as developing new technologies for the Citadel to use. Much of their craft is owed to the tools created by the Weavers themselves. And similar to the Weavers, it seems the architects were also interested in creating life. The first
Autonomous
architect
life.
designed the first cogwork heart, which was used in the Sentinels, an order of knights that served the Citadel. According to the 12th architect, the Sentinels ventured, even beyond these walls, to see all bugs brought forced safe to serve the Citadel. The use of the word forced here kind of makes me think the Sentinels were kidnapping bugs to work in the Citadel, but the Sentinel we meet in game is pretty nice, so I really don't want to believe that they did something kind of problematic like kidnapping.
Hey, don't worry about it. You know, those were old posts on Twitter from like 2012. You know, they're changed person now.
But it wasn't just the Sentinel robots that the architects created. The numerous Cogworks enemies that populate the core of the Citadel also owe their construction to the architects. But the source of their power seems to come from somewhere else. Whenever one of these machines is destroyed, these strange white flies escape from their shells. These flies are never directly referenced by anyone in game,
I never
but in
noticed
the
that.
files they are called silk flies. And these things show up all over Farloom. But where exactly do they come from? I believe the answer to that question can be found in the White Ward,
My favorite
a
area.
sub-area of the Citadel that
Fucking love this
provided the
place.
setting for horrible experiments. It's here where bugs of the Citadel had silk injected directly into their shells.
Oh yeah, even the
It
music
seems
here
this
is
was done
banger.
to extend the life of the bugs. The caretaker explains, "Just think of them greedily shoving the silk into their shells. The madness that overcame them.
Right.
Eternal life for mortal bugs." The Citadel
Yeah, even during the game, I said this is so similar to the Soul Sanctum bugs.
reasoning for this can be explained by a lore tablet found within White Ward that says, "Oath of the White Ward. While song must be sung, none may falter. Infirmary, sickness, death, all are banished from our Citadel." In other words, the Citadel couldn't afford to lose bugs to death because they needed to continue singing the song, keeping Grandmother Silk in slumber. If bugs did die, their bodies were cremated so the silk could be recovered.
Interesting.
This process of recycling silk over and over again caused the wills and pain of these bugs to live on through the silk, trapped in a state of torture even after death. But it seems the bugs of the White Ward went to even
That's pretty much like, you know, haunted. Like, basically, that silk is haunted, and we see the word haunted used so much in this game.
further with their experiments. It seems the silk flies, found inside of the Cogworks bugs, were also created here.
Right.
Inside White Ward, we can find a strange device, referred to as a silk siphon within the game's code. Huddled around this device are these silk flies. We can also see silk flies trapped inside this container,
Shit, I forget what we get from here, but we do get some important pickup. I just don't remember what.
and an identical container can be found in the center of the silk siphon. One of these containers can also be found on the ground next to the 12th architect. Playing the needle in the silk siphon room reveals the following dialogue. One line in particular is interesting to me. To serve beyond shell. To the right of this room is a chamber filled with hundreds of corpses.
Jesus.
A choral commandment can be found at the end of the room, which reads, "Bug of voice grown hoarse or shell fallen frail, you have been selected for duty most sacred. Become our light, our guide in darkness, that others worthy may climb to join the holy song." So it seems the Citadel was transforming the silk-infused souls of bugs into silk flies that could be used to provide light for the Kingdom of Farloom.
I'm sure there were better ways to get a light source, guys. Come on, you really had to trap souls into... Okay, wow.
As well as power the various automatons working within the core. Even massive constructs like the fourth chorus release several dozen silk flies when they're destroyed. Given the silk flies seen on the 12th architect's corpse after they die, it seems the architects were also powered by silk flies. The only exception to this I've found is the Cogwork Dancers, which we know were created not from the soul of a Farloom bug, but from the soul of one of the princes of Verdania. When speaking to the Green Prince after defeating the Cogwork Dancers, Hornet says, his soul is now free from that shell of iron.
Right.
It seems Weavers were still in Farloom when the silk flies were created, since we can see a few of them in Weavenest Atla. We can even see some of them in the Carmelita memory, so it seems they've been around for a long time. We know that some things changed.
How come they were there in the Carmelita memory? That's interesting.
Throughout the lifespan of the Citadel, but it can be difficult to track down exactly when these changes took place. For example, in one section of the Citadel, there's an unused statue base. The statue that used to be here was likely Pius Isamor, who was at some point hidden away within the Whispering Vaults. Pius Isamor mentions that the Citadel is built from simple stone, bare and unadorned, but that is certainly not the case by the time Hornet arrives in Farloom. So when did these changes happen? Pius Issamore does mention that the Citadel was bequeathed to the bugs by the Weavers. Bequeathing can mean to give something, but it also has a sense of handing something down. So it's possible the gilding of the Citadel didn't take place until after the Weavers gave control of it over to the Citadel bugs. But the wording
is that why the architecture and everything is like so much more Farloom bug-like rather than Weaver-like?
Is vague, and I don't get the sense that the Citadel bugs would necessarily be more interested in turning the Citadel into some gilded shining city than the Weavers were. One big change that almost definitely took place after the Weavers left was the completion of the Citadel core, which seems to be referenced in the last edict of the conductors, which reads, "And lo, is eternity sustained. By Architect's Claw, we welcome that final form of dial and rotor."
I mean, like, yeah, here they seem pretty into the whole construction gig. Maybe it's just a vicious cycle of control. I mean, Weavers took it from Grandma Silk. They ruled worse than Grandma Silk. They passed it down to the fucking bugs. Maybe some conductors were against it, but who knows? Maybe not. Maybe the architects just saw it as a fucking Minecraft project and they just went ham, gilding it up.
Soul gladly given. The perfect, unfaltering voice. The cogwork core is a massive structure of cogs and shafts in the middle of the Citadel. We know from the 12th architect that the core was built to sustain the song. The core is filled with cylinders with pips on them, similar to what you would see in a music box. And we know from the Cogwork Clapper journal entry that there are bells and cymbals within the depth of the core. And at the very top of the core are rows of statues capable of producing song. So basically, the act of sustaining the eternal song could be done automatically using the core. Even the maintenance could be done by the Cogwork automatons.
So why would they still need pilgrims?
This might even explain why the elevator at the entrance to the Citadel goes down into the underworks instead of up into the Citadel proper. If pilgrims aren't needed to sing the eternal song anymore, they can just be directed down into the underworks. It seems this was the final state of the Citadel under the rule of the conductors. Bugs
but see, like this whole directing bugs down into the underworks and, you know, this isn't the work of the fucking Weavers. Then this is just the work of the bugs who were left in charge after the Weavers. I don't know, guys. I don't think those bug bastards were any better.
They're toiling away in the underworks, locked away in the slab, or trapped as silk flies inside the cogwork shells created by the architects. The bugs themselves were replaced by the cogwork core. So not only was the religion itself fake, but the ones doing the worshipping were fake as well.
Damn, dead internet theory, you know, it's bots reacting with bots. But honestly, the architect seems to have played the biggest part in this. Are we sure they're good people?
This promise truly was an empty one. As the caretaker puts it, inside and out, it's nothing but a grand gilded lie.
Yeah.
And despite all the harsh schemes devised by both the Weavers and the Citadel cast, Grandmother Silk continued to awaken from her slumber. Conductor Valador admits to Hornet that this outcome was inevitable, saying, "The mantle of rule, claimed greedily from Farloom's fading first children, though..."
Yeah, because even here it says claimed greedily. So I think, yeah, these bug bastards who claimed that rule didn't really have the best interest of the kingdom in mind either. They're all assholes.
Bitter Weavers. It was yoke, not crown. Now in our Citadel silence, we share their truth. Only one monarch's claw ever clutched this kingdom, though we raised our voices to cry otherwise.
Yep.
The Citadel cast was finally forced to face the same reality the Weavers had. Yep. Even in her subjugation, Grandmother Silk was still the only true power in Farloom. At this point, it seems the Citadel finally fell silent, with only the automated cogwork core left capable of sustaining the song. But it wasn't enough. We aren't exactly sure when this happened, but at some point the land of Farloom became haunted by Grandmother Silk. Her threads reached down.
Why did the Citadel fall silent though? Huh.
Starting with the bugs in the Citadel, and eventually reaching all the way down to lower Farloom, binding the bugs of the land to her will. These threads can be seen occasionally when bugs are defeated, as well as when Hornet plays her needle in near them. But what exactly does the haunting do to these bugs? At the top of the marrow, Hornet can discover a mysterious building. Inside, a grunting bug and strange squelching sounds can be heard.
I remember this! This was fucking weird!
An operating table can be found in this room as well. It seems a bug obsessed with the haunting started cutting into bugs to examine the effects of the haunting itself. This bug, known as the Learned Pilgrim, was actually going to have their own quest but was ultimately cut from the game.
Oh,
But their findings
no!
can still be found written down on a lore tablet, which starts, "In the air, the water, everywhere. After generations and generations of using silk, Farloom has become covered in silk dregs. This can be seen most clearly in the Citadel." The tablet continues, "Inside their shells, twisted inside, guts, tightest around heart, pulsing rhythm. The silk has even made its way into the shells of bugs, wrapping itself around their very hearts. The presence of silk here is likely due to the experiments of the White Ward. Hornet and the Caretaker come to the conclusion that the threads implanted into the pilgrims from the experiments there would be carried down into their offspring, making the bugs of Farloom even more susceptible to the haunting. The tablet finishes, sick, alive, dead, something worse.
Why though?
Deeper. Must look deeper. The haunting doesn't just enslave the wills of living bugs, but it can also reanimate bugs that have already died, allowing Grandmother Silk to puppet them from above. Under the haunting, bugs long dead rose to their feet to mindlessly continue the tasks they had in life. Pavo, from Belhart, who was caught in threads in a similar way to the haunting, describes the experience as not particularly comfortable, saying, "It is difficult, upsetting even to think. Strange, sad memories, not my own, and my own thoughts smothered amidst the tangle."
So, the haunting is caused because Grandma Silk is becoming freer, and because everyone here is injected in silk through generations and generations of silk use, like, she's starting to take control back?
Could choose to connect themselves to something grander, that curse may seem a wonder. For myself, it now seems a horror. According to the dialogue from the Silkheart Memory and White Ward, it seems Grandmother Silk is seeking union with the bugs of Farloom.
Right.
So it makes sense that foreign thoughts would invade Pavo's mind as such.
She's pulling
While
a
the
radiance.
haunting's power was strong, it didn't enslave everyone. Some bugs like Pondcatcher Reed and Balo resisted the force that claimed their peers.
This is very
It's
similar
not
to the
clear why
radiance.
some bugs were able to resist the haunting's power. Benjen and Krull, the two best characters in the game, share their own theories about it, saying, "The haunting? Oh, we's got that all worked out. Benjen and me are a right pair of philosophers when we bend our minds to it.
Okay.
It's faith that gets you. It's all caused by being too devout.
Oh.
Yeah, or maybe not being devout enough. Or maybe it's safest not to think about it at all.
So
We
you
could
just
all
gotta
learn
be
a thing or
stupid.
two from these wise men."
Yep, fair
At
enough.
some point, probably during the haunting, Grandmother Silk also created her own children entirely out of silk, Phantom and Lace. In the Silkheart cutscene after defeating
What? I never knew that.
Lace in the cradle, we get some dialogue hinting at Grandmother Silk's motivation for creating Lace.
That's wild.
Better a child spun mad than none. Better a child spun frail than none. Better a child spun pure than them. One to wish our waking. From our silk, a child born loyal. So it seems Lace was created to be a loyal replacement for the Weavers who betrayed Grandmother Silk in the past. Caretaker describes Lace as follows. "Look of a
What about
child and a
Phantom?
mind to match, but hers been up wandering this citadel longer than most, even in its long silence. Way 'fore you came and roused its ire." So Lace is kinda like a 1,000-year-old kid, like you see in those Asian cartoons.
Yeah,
So that's kinda weird.
yeah.
But then again, the Knight in Hollow Knight is technically using the body of an unborn fetus when you think about it.
Fair enough.
So maybe this is par for the course for Hollow Knight lore.
Fair enough.
The point is, it seems Grandmother Silk really emphasized the child aspect of Lace when creating her.
Maybe like out of
Perhaps
fear.
thinking that would make her more loyal.
Yeah.
But that plan created its own problems, as we'll see.
So man, this shit has been going on for fucking ever. Like, this kingdom's ancient.
Phantom is the other daughter created by Grandmother Silk.
This is a
But
shocker
she appears
to
to
me.
be deteriorating by the time Hornet finds her
This is
hidden
a
away in the
shocker to me.
exhaust organ under the Citadel. Her needle in dialogue contains lines like "forgotten" and "discarded," implying that Grandmother Silk wasn't as invested in her as she was
Was she the
Lace.
first one?
But despite their different stations in Farloom, Lace and Phantom share a similar tragic fate. Inside this area is an empty tank. Playing the needle and reveals a thread memory of Lace talking to her sister inside the tank.
Whoa!
The dialogue reads, "She spun us to fade. She spun us to break. Why us, sister? Why us?" Lace seems to resent her mother for her form, saying,
Interesting.
"This weak, wasting existence. This was not life, just a husk shaped to act as a child." Lace's Hunter's journal entry also claims that it would take a lot of silk to maintain Lace's form. So it seems Grandmother Silk's silk-spun children were fragile creations. Phantom has come to accept this by the events of the game, asking Hornet in her Needlein dialogue to free her from her fading fate.
Fair
Lace,
enough.
on the other hand,
Give a good
still
battle.
isn't too happy about the whole being born frail thing.
Right.
Huh. I wonder if this will be important later.
Probably not.
At some point during all this, choir bugs were sent out from Farloom to track down and retrieve the weavers and their kin. The cages used to transport these weavers can be found in the cradle, giving us insight into where they were captured. A frail bug with 1/8 weaver ancestry was found in the Sand Sea Waste. Another 1/8 weaver was mortally wounded and taken in the Black Barrens.
Okay. So I was gonna say, when Mossback said that, oh, weavers are all females, I was like, so the only pure weavers could be the first generation of weavers created by Grandma Silk, and then the more spawn they have, the less weaver they get. Seems to be the case, eh?
Quarter ancestry weaver was staked to serve.
So my guess right now is they were capturing these weavers as like another attempt to contain Grandma Silk.
And taken under the City of Steel. We can also find a choral commandment possessed by one of the bugs that kidnapped Hornet, which reads, "Full chamber to the kingdom of the white worm. Claim the weaver in half part. Last of their line. Send strong with silk.
Right.
Resistance anticipated."
Because all these motherfuckers are like 10th, 12th generation weavers, and Hornet is she's literally half weaver. Probably the only one left in the whole world. Maybe that's why she was so important. Because they needed the weavers as a last resort to contain Grandma Silk. Also, this is just even more sad that the entire, like, there's so much cut content related to the Crust King Khan. That makes me really sad, man. That's one aspect of the game I wanted to be explored more.
Quell with Rune Cage. What's interesting about this line is the phrase, "sensed strong with silk."
Yeah, because
which
she's second
possibly implies
generation.
that the weavers could be sensed from Farloom,
Right.
possibly explaining how the locations of the weavers were known. It seems most likely that Grandmother Silk ordered these weavers captured. Her exact motives are
Wait! Oh, okay, so this was after the haunting from Grandma Silk then. All this time I thought this was before, for a way to cap.
never
Okay.
directly stated, but it seems likely to me that Grandmother Silk wants these weavers for their silken strength.
Oh.
Maybe she intends to bind these weavers to herself, making her even stronger.
I thought it was the
While
opposite.
we know several
huh?
weavers were brought back to Farloom, only one can be found alive in-game.
Oh, there's the Widow. Yeah.
Widow is a pretty
Bruh.
mysterious
I
character
forgot.
in the lore. According to Hornet, her mask was forcibly removed, and heavy pins were stuck in her spine to keep her
Ugh.
from making her own silk.
What the
Widow
fuck?
is a fanatic for Grandmother Silk, and a thread memory of her worshipping her in the cradle can be found. Widow is a bit crazed when Hornet finds her, and that seems to be the result of her mask being removed. We know from Hornet's interaction with Mask Maker in this game that masks can, in fact, alter a creature's personality.
Right.
But who exactly removed Widow's mask, and why? One theory is that Widow is the quarter weaver who was captured and staked to service. That would make some sense, since Widow has been literally staked in the back, and is now serving Grandmother Silk. However, the stake to service line might be referring to what state this weaver was in when they were first found by the choir bugs, not the ultimate fate they faced once back in Farloom.
Could be.
Aside from that, some of Widow's dialogue makes me think that something else is going on here. When she meets Hornet, Widow refers to her as spawn of those who dared to flee. This line implies to me that Widow didn't flee Farloom like her sisters.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would come off a bit hypocritical.
True.
In her thread memory in the cradle, she says, "Of the first, the last, and our mother, true."
No, I think Widow is a pure-born weaver. I think she was just, like Mossback said, very devoted to Grandma Silk, unlike her fellow weavers. And she has a disdain for them for that.
These lines imply Widow has a much more direct connection with Grandmother Silk, as opposed to being only a 1/4 weaver born somewhere outside of Farloom.
True.
I suspect Widow was the only weaver still alive in Farloom after all the others fled.
Yeah, that makes
As
more
for
sense.
the removed mask and bounded silk, there are several possibilities. Perhaps Widow was punished by her fellow
That
weavers
was my first
for
thought.
continuing to support Grandmother Silk,
Pretty much,
even
yeah.
after she was put to sleep.
That was my first
Although,
thought.
why wouldn't they just imprison her like they did for Sinner? Maybe Grandmother Silk cruelly had Widow punished for the crimes of her fleeing sisters, and then kept her around as a servant. Or
That
maybe
would be-
Widow did it to herself, forcibly pulling her own mask off, similar to pulling out one's own teeth. As some
Damn,
kind of
dude, these are all very good theories. Yeah, the first theory has a big hole in it, because why wouldn't they just put her to the same fate as the first sinner? Then the second theory is really, really cruel. But I don't see why Grandma Silk would do that, other than just to get some come up inside of it. But I don't think so, because the thing is, she would probably have Widow killed if she was that mad at the Weaver's betrayal. I don't think so. It could be the third part. Maybe she's just insane.
And to demonstration of fealty to her mother. Nothing is strictly confirmed though, and I'll be curious to see what theories evolve around this character.
I like the third theory
As
the
for the
most.
Weavers that did flee Farloom, it seems their goal was still to create a child that could usurp Grandmother Silk. One of these groups ended up in Deep Nest, where one of its members, Hera the Beast, became queen. Deep Nest bordered a larger civilization called Hollow Nest, ruled by the Pale King
good old
and the
Hollow
White
Knight
Lady.
role. Okay.
At some point, the Pale King asked Hera to become a dreamer, a role which would require her to fall into an eternal sleep. Hera agreed, but only if the Pale King gave her a child. The exact details of what happened next are far too dangerous to discuss here on YouTube, so please type this URL into your browser if you really want to know.
No.
Either way, the result of all this was the birth of Hornet. We see during the Red Memory in Act 3 of Silksong that the Weavers were watching over Hornet closely, hoping to draw out her Weaver nature, saying, "Prove yourself more Weaver than Worm." But Hera challenged this, telling Hornet, "Ignore them, daughter. They're whispers. Greater, grander, Weaver, Guardian, Queen. Those are their desires, not your own. Certainly not mine. Only if you resist them, you might see it. Another hope, beyond." So it seems the Weaver saw Hornet's strength as a pale being, and hoped that she would finally help them defeat Grandmother Silk. Hera, on the other hand, seemingly had no interest in this plan, encouraging Hornet to forge her own path.
Hera, genuinely loved Hornet. She just wanted a daughter.
There's just one wrinkle to all this I just don't understand. During the events of Hollow Knight, we see that the Weaver's den in Deep Nest is completely abandoned, save for one Weaver which can be spotted watching the night. According to the Weaver Song charm found in this area, these Weavers actually left Hollow Nest for their old home, Farloom. But if that's the case, what happened to them? The Weave Nest tablets make it pretty clear that they wanted to stay as far away from Grandma Silky as possible. The only possible indication of where the Hollow Nest Weavers went can be found in Weave Nest Absalom in the Abyss. In this Weave Nest, Hornet can find the Far Sight item. This item allows observation over vast distances, and can tell Hornet the state of the world. In the real world, this would be a horrifying mass surveillance device, the likes of which only exist in fiction stories, like the classic novel 1984. But in-game, it basically means the player can now see the game's completion percentage. There are a lot of parallels.
Really, Mossbag? Really? 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 Wow.
That can be drawn between this item and the Pale King from Hollow Nest. The design of the object itself vaguely resembles him. The Pale King has an ability described as foresight, allowing him to know the future to some extent. The lore tablet he left for the Hollow Knight in the Black Egg Temple also gives the world sensibility, which allows the player to see the game's completion percentage. The rune effect in the Farsight cutscene also resembles runes we see in the cast-off
that's a beautiful cutscene.
So it's possible the Weavers designed this device after encountering the Pale King in Hollow Nest and returning to Farloom. But if that's the case, where are they? Another possibility is that the Weavers encountered a different worm than the Pale King, and that's what inspired them to build the Farsight.
Why did they go back?
We just don't have quite enough information to say for sure.
Why did they go back?
One way or another, Chorus bugs were sent to Hollow Nest. They eventually captured Hornet within a rune cage and carried her all the way back to Farloom.
So that's the biggest mystery right now, is connecting the events of Hollow Knight and Silksong, the whole Weaver thing, because in Farloom, Weavers fled Farloom to Hollow Nest, but in Hollow Nest lores, Weaver fled Hollow Nest away. So what the hell is going on there?
And now we finally made it to the events of Silksong proper.
Indeed.
It's at this point I want to thank a few people for their help on this video, talking lore with me and sharing ideas, as well as the Hollow Knight wiki community in general, for just being really cool.
That's awesome.
Also the modding community as well. It took a bit of time for the wiki and mod communities to build up around Hollow Knight when it released back in 2017. So it's been awesome to watch the community tear Silksong apart like a pack of ravenous hyenas on the Serengeti.
Indeed.
It honestly brings a tear to my eye, and I don't even cry that much anymore. As the party arrives in Farloom,
After Silksong came out? Yeah, same.
a silkfly appears out of nowhere and breaks the rune on Hornet's cage. Hornet escapes from her captors and begins her long trek up.
So my theory now that after everything we've learned throughout the video is that Silkfly, because we see Lace conducting them, clearly she can conduct them. It was sent by Lace to free Hornet because these bastards were bringing in Hornet to Farloom. Maybe it could be two things, right? Maybe Lace was like worried that Hornet will kill her mother. She wanted to protect. Or maybe she wanted to do the opposite, whereas these people were bringing Hornet to strengthen her mother, Grandma Silk, and Lace didn't want that. Who knows?
To the citadel, telling the chapel maid, "Then I shall seek their citadel. If the veiled bugs would go to such lengths to bring me here, I intend to find out why."
True.
Along the way, Hornet will meet beloved characters, such as Quiet Pilgrim, Fearful Pilgrim, Aged Pilgrim, Tall Pilgrim, Solemn Pilgrim, Worried Pilgrim, Dejected Pilgrim, Wary Pilgrim, Exhausted Pilgrim, Pilgrim Preacher, Humble Pilgrim, Scared Pilgrim, Horned Pilgrim, and everyone's favorite, Mort. She'll also find corpses of her dead ancestors, who have waited for her arrival so they could share their strength with her in hopes that she may dethrone Grandmother Silk. Hornet will also face some of her greatest threats yet, such as lava,
double
traps,
damage,
thorns, rocks, bells, steam, and other such obstacles worthy of challenging a godlike being such as Hornet. Hornet can bear witness to many strange rituals along her way.
That
She can
funeral
find
was awesome.
pilgrims enthralled in worship. She can break bread with bugs still in control of their senses. And she can even learn to play almost 10 whole songs on her needle.
Wow.
Hornet can even stumble upon a strange cult of burning bugs
The KKK.
obsessed with flame. Deep within the thicket, Hornet can find the father of the flame, a giant totem and god containing the burning corpse of an aged bug.
It's just a scarecrow.
I wonder if this will be important later.
No, it won't.
Depending on how she ascends Farloom, Hornet can also be attacked by Lace in Deep Docks. Lace is conducting silkflies in this scene, perhaps indicating that she is the one who freed Hornet from her cage at the
I
start
believe
of the game.
so.
Lace seems jealous that her mother is more interested in Hornet than her, so she has decided to kill Hornet to keep her from reaching her mother at the Citadel. However, if Hornet takes a different route to the Citadel, Lace will just show up and taunt her without actually fighting her. A true hater.
Wow.
In her journey, Hornet may also come across Haunted Bellheart,
Didn't know you could
a
do
town
that.
whose citizens have been strung up by silk into the air. Hornet describes a situation like this. The thread sickness. I've seen its like upon the roads, but there it does not discriminate. The curse that strikes the town, it is driven, focused, a cold use of silk at a concerning scale. Upon investigating the area, Hornet discovers the culprit, Widow.
right.
While not the source of the silk itself,
She
Widow
was the
can play
one
music
that...
upon it to manipulate the silk to her
Right.
whim. Widow curses the town as a gift for Grandmother Silk, and now sees Hornet as another offering she can give her mother. Once Hornet defeats Widow, she binds the ancestral art Needlein. From here, Hornet has two paths to the Citadel.
Yep.
She can either ring the 5 bells
Pilgrim
located in the
path
bell shrine
or the
scattered throughout
Phantom
Farloom and fight the last judge at the peak of the
Yep.
blasted steps, or she can venture through Sinner's Road to find the Mist, a strange region of warped space in Farloom full of silkflies and vengeful wraiths. By playing her Needlein for the silkflies,
It's
Hornet
drugs,
can
man.
find her way to the exhaust organ and defeat Phantom. Upon defeating either Last Judge or Phantom, Hornet will gain access to the Citadel.
And both of those have separate cutscenes, which is fucking cool.
Hornet arrives at a seemingly empty Citadel, until Lace appears again to taunt her. Hornet tells Lace she knows a higher being is responsible for the haunting overtaking Farloom. Lace mocks Hornet, telling her that she has no chance of defeating Grandmother Silk. Hornet replies by saying, "I've found those who claim themselves a god can rarely match the title. And
That was
experience
hard.
tells me even gods can fall."
Oh, that was
After
harder.
this interaction, Grandmother Silk lets out a scream, and the Citadel comes to life with the haunted husks of Citadel bugs.
Grandma
Once
Silk's
Hornet
like,
reaches
"You
the
bet."
top of the Citadel and defeats the cogwork dancers, she must complete the threefold melody, recovering the 3 separate songs held by the architects, keepers, and conductors. But before she can get the melodies, Hornet will have to fight one of the most complex and thematically rich characters in Silksong, and
yes.
perhaps even all of fiction.
Of course.
Trabio. Trabio is a tragic character. His dream was
he?
to bring the Citadel back to life through the magic of the great stage. He called upon Hornet to be his partner in reigniting the flame that fuels the land of Farloom. The two danced a dance of unparalleled
Very
beauty,
grim-like.
with every step, every turn, every goddamn exploding ball executed exactly as choreographed. But then tragedy struck, when Hornet straight up murders Trabio for real, live on stage. Trabio made the ultimate sacrifice for Farloom,
Killing him
and
with the
now he's dead
alcoholic
forever.
glow.
And yet, he lives
is
on
he?
in the hearts and minds of children all over the world. Thank you, Trabio.
Beautiful.
It seems that
Bravo.
covering the parts of the threefold melody was meant to be impossible. Hornet mentions that the climb through the cogwork core to reach the architect's melody would be near impossible for a normal bug.
True.
And Vault Keeper Cardenius even outright states it was against the law for a Vault Keeper to share the Vault Keeper's melody with a non-Vault Keeper. These roadblocks to completing the threefold melody might play into the idea that regular bugs were never actually supposed to be able to reach the top of the Citadel to learn the truth about Grandmother Silk's imprisonment.
True.
Hornet plays the completed melody to the statues and is finally granted access to a lift that will transport her to the cradle. At the top of the lift, Hornet finds Lace, waiting for her in a field of flowers. After the battle, the two finally discuss Lace's true nature. Lace expresses frustration at her silken form, viewing it as a cruel mimicry of life.
So I guess her reason for going after Hornet were more childish than I initially imagined, which makes sense. She was just kind of jealous that her mom would rather have Hornet than care about her.
Hornet tries to console her, but Lace is having none of it and promptly dies. With Lace out of the way, Hornet finally confronts Grandmother Silk, the pale being responsible for everything that's happened up to this point. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect her to look like this.
Same!
She's not bug-like at all.
Same!
She's like some kind of
She looks like a fan-made character almost, not gonna lie.
weird woman. This is what a woman looks like, by the way.
Thank you,
After
Kunk on
defeating
Life.
her, Hornet binds Grandmother Silk to herself. As she does so, her crest expands immensely, and her masks transform into Weaver-style ones. Hornet's binding results in the entire Citadel getting covered in a thick web of silk. We then see Hornet's body curled up inside the cradle as she grows additional pairs of arms. This ending is referred to as Weaver Queen in the game's achievements menu.
Fun fact, this is the first time I'm seeing this shit because I've never seen this ending yet, and I thought it would be the Mossbag video as an honor to watch this for the first time. Didn't disappoint.
It seems this was the end goal of the Weavers. Much like Eva before her, Hornet was an attempt by the Weavers to create a being capable of usurping Grandmother Silk. The Weaver Queen ending is not a happy ending for Hornet, as it depicts her following the predestined path the Weavers wanted for her, with her body becoming even more Weaver-like in appearance. But we know that wasn't Hornet's true desire. At some point, the caretaker asks this of Hornet, saying, "Ready to make your play, to oust one ruler and claim her place?" To which Hornet replies, "I'll not deny some part of me desires that outcome. Dominance, it seems, is baked deep in my blood, as too, no doubt, for the one up top. And yet, another part resists. A part, over time..."
So are the Weavers just hoping that if one of theirs becomes the next monarch or whatever, the next god, that they would just, treat the Weavers better? Was that their end goal?
I find myself siding with more. That part wishes not to claim a monarch's mantle. Rather, it would see my freedom regained, and this kingdom's bugs unshackled from their pale chains. So if the Weaver Queen ending is a bad ending for Hornet, are there any good ones? Well, let's look at the Twisted Child ending. To get this ending, Hornet has to bring the Twisted Bud item to Greyroot, a strange creature located in Shellwood. Doing this lets Hornet access the Rite of Rebirth quest, where Greyroot injects Hornet with a parasite that limits her silk and removes her ability to equip tools. To remove the parasite, Hornet must seek help from Yarnaby in Greymoor,
I've never seen this ending
a doctor kicked out of Belhart for her questionable medical practices. But Hornet can actually just keep adventuring around Farloom instead of dealing with the parasite immediately. This can lead to some interesting interactions. Eva will bar Hornet from entering her chamber. Any wardenfly that catches Hornet in a cage will be killed by the parasite. Tip and Pill will refuse to let Hornet make deliveries. But the biggest change comes from when Hornet defeats Grandmother Silk while still infected. Both pale beings will get tangled in the parasite's roots and be turned into some kind of hardened plant material. Then this happens.
Wow!
So I don't think that's a particularly good ending either. But the bad endings don't stop there. There's actually another ending that was cut from the game called Strung to Serve. From what information I've seen, This ending was originally going to trigger if Hornet hadn't rung enough of the Bell Shrine bells across Farloom.
Okay.
There's a cut line from Caretaker implying these bells weaken Grandmother Silk. In the final game, these bells just unlock one of the 2 paths to the Citadel, so they aren't quite as important as they might have been earlier in the game's development.
That's
In this
so
ending,
cool.
Grandmother Silk overpowers Hornet at the end of the battle.
Wow.
We get a shot of what appears to be some kind of fusion between the 2 beings. This being then sends threads down to the hapless pilgrims below. So in this ending, it seems like Grandmother Silk succeeded in taking Hornet's strength and is now free to enslave all of Farloom to her will. So that's a really, really bad ending.
Where'd that cutscene
But
come
don't worry,
from?
I'm sure the next ending will be good, right? Well, no, it's not a good ending. It's honestly not even really an ending. If Hornet helps enough people in Farloom...
That's so crazy though. Where'd that cutscene come from? Huh. Wow, man. I'm just kind of deep in thought about this because I've never seen these endings. I know of them, I just never seen them. So it's really cool. Like with the twisted one, the parasite, the scream you hear. Is it like a new birth of a parasite god now? Wow, that's a lot to unpack there.
Caretaker will eventually suggest to her a method to trap Grandmother Silk. This involves collecting the souls of the Caretaker's remaining relatives left in Farloom. These souls include the Chapel Maid in the Moss Grotto, the Bell Hermit underneath Bellheart,
and the
deceased bug whose soul can be found in Bile Water. Both the Chapel Maid and the Bell Hermit give their souls willingly, but the remaining soul, the Seeker's soul, is a little more difficult to obtain.
Oh yeah,
At some
just a little more, just a tiny bit more.
At some point, this bug traveled into Bile Water to seek the help of the Stillkin. But instead of working with this bug to fight against the Citadel, the Stillkin killed him and took his soul. Hornet has to infiltrate the Stillkin's home, Bilehaven, and defeat them and their leader, Grohl the Great.
So funny.
Now, I have the feeling people are going to try and make the Stillkin out to be the bad guys here. But I'll be honest, if the Seeker was anything like the Caretaker or the Bell Hermit, I don't blame the Stillkin for doing what they did. I will stand with Grohl the Great here, and I hope you do too. The Caretaker also instructs Hornet to search Weaveness Atla for the Weaver's prototype weapon, the Snare Setter. Hornet gives these 3 souls and the Snare Setter to the Caretaker, who then sets up the trap inside the cradle. Hornet then challenges Grandmother Silk. After defeating her, instead of binding, Hornet plays her needle in to activate the Caretaker's trap. But something unexpected happens. A large circle of void within the Snare Setter appears beneath Hornet and Grandmother Silk. The art assets for this thing imply that it's actually opening a portal directly to the abyss.
That's
the
what I
void
thought
starts to pull Grandmother Silk in, who in turn grabs onto Hornet, attempting to drag her down as well. But this scheme is thwarted by Lace, who cuts Hornet free and falls into the void with her mother.
That was so fucking
the 2
cool.
disappear into a giant black ball of void that then collapses in on itself, creating a shockwave that shakes the entire Citadel. But just as things seem to have finally ended, void-covered silk threads reach up through the ground from below. This concludes the snared Silk ending. But instead of putting Hornet back to before the fight in the save file, this ending triggers Silksong's 3rd act, called Abyss. Hornet awakens to find that all of Farloom has been altered, with environments wrecked by the appearance of black threads.
Like, can you imagine though if you got to see like the Act 4 Farloom, like the ultimate Farloom, free of the Citadel, free of the fucking Weavers, free of the bugs that control them after the Weavers, free of Void, just Farloom in its fucking prime. Man, that would have been a sight.
NPCs killed in the quakes,
but this was so
and enemies possessed by Void. Hornet travels back to the ruined chapel where she
that happens if you don't defeat the 2 Moss Mothers in Act 2. They get possessed by Void, apparently. And same with, like, a lot of bosses, like Savage Beastfly gets possessed with Void and gets Void attacks. That's so fucking crazy, man, how different everyone's experience with Silksong is compared to Hollow Knight.
It's the Caretaker, the Chapel Maid, and the Bell Hermit, who we learn at this point are actually snail shamans. It turns out their fascination with the Void led them to try and use it in combination with the Snare Setter to trap Grandmother Silk in the abyss. The only problem is Lace also fell into the trap. This has caused Grandmother Silk to violently resist against the Void, continuously creating more silk to keep the abyss from consuming her daughter. And at the same time, Void-infused threads connected to her cocoon have shot up into Farloom, threatening to destroy the entire kingdom. Hornet resolves to travel to the abyss to investigate. She heads to the deep docks to seek the help of Ballo in using the old diving bell to drop down into
which I kept calling the Divine Bell in my playthrough because I can't fucking read.
The abyss. Ballo obliges, but the age of the bell causes a malfunction, leaving Hornet stranded deep below Farloom. Hornet looks for Grandmother Silk, but discovers that she has been submerged within the Sea of Void.
Yep.
Lace, never one to waste an opportunity to mock Hornet, somehow astral projects herself into the room and tells Hornet there's nothing she
Dude, Lace is #1 hater. Damn, she would really astral project herself just to hate on Hornet.
can do to save Farloom. Lace explains that she saved Hornet as an act of rebellion against her mother for creating her so frail, and seems to relish in the idea of dooming her mother and all of Farloom along with her.
Yeah,
But
fuck 'em
Hornet
all.
remains determined, claiming that she will acquire the bloom that repels the dark. Hornet returns to the top of the abyss, only to find that the diving bell has disappeared.
It's
so
gone.
she has to climb back out of the abyss herself.
That was so
It's
cool,
at this
dude.
point that the music from the 2019 reveal
Yep,
trailer starts
that
playing
was
for
the
the first and only
hypest.
time during the entire game. Now, I've watched that trailer probably
That
over
was so
300
hype.
times in the last 6 years,
Uh-huh.
and it was honestly kind of weird not hearing all the sound effects from the trailer.
Yep.
Hopefully Team Cherry will patch the game to add them back in. I really think that would make this moment even more epic. Hornet returns to the Snail Shaman
All the sound effects. Oh, that looks so
and
goofy.
explains that she must retrieve an Everbloom from within her own memories. We see what is likely the exact same type of flower in Hollow Knight, going by the name Delicate Flower. Grey Mourner, one of the Pale King's 5 great knights, brought the delicate flower from a faraway land.
Oh man, every time he switches to a scene from Hollow Knight, you just immediately notice how much more simple the artwork is compared to Silksong, and how more detailed every single background asset is in Silksong. Like, it's crazy.
And requests that the knight take the flower to the grave of her dead lover, the Traitor Lord's daughter.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with Team Cherry and tragic dead gay lovers, but if you are gay or have a gay lover, and Team Cherry wants to put you in their game, maybe
Yeah.
stop and think about it first.
True.
If the knight tries to give the delicate flower to the white lady, she declines, explaining that the flower contains a rare power. She also tells Hornet in the red memory that the Everbloom is the first light. The knight can give the flower to the Godseeker, but while she recognizes it as rare and pure, she can't detect any godliness from it. However, giving the delicate flower to Godseeker actually unlocks an alternate ending for Hollow Knight.
Yep.
The Godseekers in Hollow Knight are attempting to attune to the Radiance, who they detect as the highest god in all the land.
Still
when the
need
knight
to do
first
that.
arrives in Godhome, a dream realm inside the mind of the Godseeker, she is not impressed, calling it a cringer. But if the knight continues to clear the pantheons, defeating boss after boss, the Godseeker begins to take notice of the knight. Upon defeating the Absolute Radiance at the end of the Pantheon of Hallownest, the knight seems to take on a new form, referred to in-game as Void Given
Shit,
Focus.
Lord.
After this transformation, the knight begins to leak out from the Godseeker, with void tendrils lashing out from her body. However, if the Godseeker is holding the delicate flower,
I wonder
Godseeker
how
and
he'll
the void
connect this
leaking
to
from her
Silksong.
disappear, leaving only the flower with a single stained petal. So it does indeed seem like the Everbloom can repel void.
Uh-huh.
Whether or not this event in Hollow Knight is the memory Hornet has of the Everbloom is unclear though.
Oh,
The White Lady
that would be interesting. That would solidify that as the canon ultimate ending of Hollow Knight. Huh.
calling the Everbloom the First Light implies this flower might be a primordial force in the world of Hollow Knight. It's described as having a pale light, maybe indicating that the power found within all pale beings is connected to it.
Could be.
But for whatever reason, only these flowers can repel void.
I just see it as if the flower is the primordial light and void is the primordial dark, it's just like the basic elemental particles, you could say, of this universe, like the dark being the void and then the Everbloom being the embodiment of the light, you know?
Due to her nature as a weaver, Hornet can access things like the Everbloom from her memories using silk. So I guess it kinda works like Essence in Hollow Knight, but instead it's silk. Because
Kinda.
what can't silk do in this universe?
Yeah.
They can make frickin' laser beams out of silk, for God's sake.
True.
However, Hornet needs a spell from the Snail Shamans to actually access the Everbloom. The Snail Shamans tell her they can cast the spell, but it will require a tremendous amount of power. They tell Hornet to seek the Old Hearts, the strength
Right.
remaining from the former rulers of Farloom,
Right.
Crust King Khan, Scar Singer Carmelita, and Nihilith.
Mhm.
The Shamans then teach Hornet a new song on her needlin.
Lots of it's a running theme with Silksong, you know, collect 3 melodies, collect 3 jars of frickin' souls for the trap, collect 3 hearts for the spell.
Elegy of the Deep, which will allow her to access the memories of these bugs from when they were in their prime. So basically like traveling to a pocket dimension. This is similar to the film Shrek Forever After.
Thank you.
Hornet finds the old hearts scattered all across Farloom. In the wind-blasted sands of Karak, she can find the corpse of Crust King Khan, hidden away in the Coral Tower. He's even got all his soldiers with him, aura farming even in death.
Aura farming. Can't believe you're almost through the video and we haven't heard a single mention of fleas. God damn it.
In Upper Shellwood, she finds a shrine built begrudgingly by the Citadel in honor of Nihilith. The shrine itself is protected by Shrine Guardian Seth, who stops any bug who would try to approach it, killing them if necessary. It's not clear where Seth came from, or why he's even in service to Nihilith, but it seems like he's under some kind of spell, considering his personality completely changes after Hornet defeats him, revealing himself to be a total gamer.
There we go.
Finally, a Hollow Knight character I can relate to. Well, him and Styx. On the east end of Farfield, Hornet can find the withered frame of Scar Singer Carmelita, who's gotten a little bit bigger since she was young.
There we go. Thank you for... Okay, so she just aged?
I've heard this is what protein powder does to you.
Right.
Playing her newly learned song will allow Hornet to battle Khan, Nihilith, and Carmelita
That's cool.
in their prime, and claim their hearts for the Snail Shaman's ritual.
That's
Hornet
cool.
can also, completely unprompted mind you, track down the Green Prince on the border of Verdania and murder him while he mourns the loss of his lover. Hornet will then call him vain in her murder journal. What the fuck, Hornet? This means Hornet can actually acquire 4 old hearts. Whichever one she doesn't give to the Snail Shamans will get put on a shelf in her bell home. What is her problem?
Well, that's fair, but how do you not... Wait, what? Because the game never asked me which hearts I wanted to give. It just took the original 3. Left me with that. So I'm guessing, if I went to the shamans with 2 of their asked ones and 1 of the Green Prince, then the 4th heart would still be accessible. And then if I collect it after the fact, after getting the flower, then that heart will be displayed in my house?
Upon bringing the old hearts to the Snail Shamans, the trio cast their spell, sending Hornet into the Red Memory, a dream space flashing back to moments of her past. We see the Weavers influencing Hornet from a young age, encouraging her to embrace her Weaver heritage. We then see Hera telling Hornet to forge her own path in life, and that she is not bound to follow the desires of her Weaver kin. Good mom. We then see Hornet training with Hive Queen Vespa, the ruler of the Hive, a location hidden away in the far reaches of Hallownest. The idea that Hornet was trained by Vespa...
I guess what happened to Carmelita is kind of what happened to Vespa. She grew huge.
...was mentioned by Ari Gibson all the way back in 2017.
Yeah.
But he implied the relationship might not have applied anymore. But 8 years later, Team Cherry has finally confirmed it. Now, you might think that this interaction finally explains why Hornet's name is Hornet. But the game technically doesn't indicate that anywhere in Vespa's dialogue. For all we know, Hera just named her that. At the end of the Red Memory, Hornet confronts the White Lady, who defends her actions regarding the creation of the vessels. In case you forgot this minor plot point from Hollow Knight, the Pale King and the White Lady created the vessels by dropping their children into the abyss and allowing the void to hollow them out. One vessel was chosen to contain the Radiance, a vengeful moth god who has infected the kingdom of Hallownest with a sickness that preys on the minds and dreams of its citizens.
Indeed.
Not only does this plan fail, as the Hollow Knight would...
Just this quick recap of Hollow Knight's lore. Damn, I guess it's much more simpler than whatever the fuck is going on in Silksong with these shifting power dynamics and rulers changing or whatever. Silksong's lore seems way more complicated than Hollow Knight, which is the exact opposite of what I said at the start of the video.
...wasn't pure enough to contain the Radiance, but countless more vessels, including the player character from the game, were abandoned in the abyss. Hollow Knight's story is about the player character, the Knight, coming to terms with its past and deciding the fate of Hallownest on its own terms. So, all things considered, not the best showing by these 2 higher beings. And Hornet even calls the White Lady out here, saying she would never resort to such a weak scheme for salvation.
I knew the wish and the price to achieve it, and now across these many ages, I've only
such a
come
weak
to know
scheme
it
for
better.
salvation. The White Lady responds with pity, and finally offers Hornet the Everbloom.
Okay.
I think this sequence serves as Hornet rejecting the excuses of her divine kin. It seems Hornet views their actions as coming from a position of weakness, while Hornet has come to find the strength to craft the world exactly as she dreams it. And through that strength, Hornet will choose to save another from
In other words, she just said, I'm built different.
the void, instead of sacrificing an entire generation of offspring to it. Hornet's resolve is reflected in the journal entry for Lost Lace, which reads, "To quell the mother's rage and see this kingdom saved, I will claim her back. This one the dark shall not take." Hornet awakens in the snail shaman's hut, but all three of them are now gone, save for their shells. They seem to have used all their energy when casting the spell, and faded away. Let's have a moment of silence for the snail shamans, who bravely gave their lives for Farloom. Anyways, here's my tier list for them. With the Everbloom in hand, Hornet returns to Deep Docks.
Wait, who did he put in the
Anyways, here's my tier
Oh, that's the chapel made
list for them. With the Everbloom in hand, Hornet returns to Deep Docks, where Ballo has fixed the diving bell.
Hell yeah,
Hornet
Ballo!
descends into the abyss again, where Lace stops her to chat one more time, saying, "Take the final plunge, Spider. Join us in my drowning palace, and let Oblivion swallow
just
us
for
all."
fun.
Hornet rebuffs Lace, saying, "Oblivion may take you, child. My own life I shall not sacrifice. I have survived the fury of your land. I have borne its barbs and its blades, and I have seen wonders behind its dangers."
Hell yeah, she's like, get out of here with that weak shit. Don't project on me.
"But always, child, I remain a daughter of Hallownest, and the void below all things, that darkness I will fear no longer." This is the last line of dialogue in the game before the true ending, and it's also the only time in the entire game the word Hallownest is spoken.
That's true.
Which, considering Hollow Knight is 8 years old at this point, I think legally qualifies as nostalgia bait. You hate to see it. Hornet then
God
begins
damn
her
you,
descent
Jerry.
into the lake of nothing below. Hornet arrives in a silken sphere created by Grandmother Silk. The pale monarch can be seen inside, bare of silk. Lace finally appears, but this time corrupted by Void, referred to in-game as Lost Lace. Hornet proceeds to beat the crap out of her, slowly freeing her body from the corrupting Void. Once Lace is finally cleansed by Hornet's blade, Hornet asks Grandmother Silk to give her enough silk so that she can escape the Sea of Void and return Lace to safety. However, as Hornet and Lace rocket through the Void, the petals of the Everbloom disintegrate. The ever-hungry Void tendrils take this opportunity to strike,
most
but
epic
are stopped
moment.
by none other than the Knight,
Most
who has
epic
arrived in
fucking
Farloom
moment.
with the rest of the Shades. We even briefly see the Knight's focused form,
This is further proof of the theory that there's just the entire world below the surface is the void world. It's just all connected.
indicating that the Knight has likely been elevated in power by the ritual of Godhome in this timeline. We never really got a sense of the Knight's desires in the events of Hollow Knight, but I feel the Dream No More ending was about the Knight and its siblings destroying the Radiance.
Yeah.
Not because they wanted to save Hallownest or anything, but because they wanted to free the Hollow Knight from its suffering. Trapped in the Black Egg, separated from its siblings.
That's a good
The
point.
Knight also choosing to help Hornet, another one of its siblings, implies that the Knight really does care for her. And it's not like Hornet also didn't help the Knight as well, guiding it towards the King's brand so it could learn the truth of its conception.
True.
So the Knight helping Hornet here is another example of how Hornet helping others leads to the world of Hollow Knight being a better place, at least in some ways. The Knight
True.
returns Hornet and Lace to the surface, the void threads around them dissipate, the two awaken, and Lace has a bit of a laugh while Hornet hits her with the Weaver stare. This ending is called Sister of the Void. Farloom and its White Knight have been saved from complete destruction, and the system of endless song and toil has finally been eradicated. But now that we've talked about Silksong's story in detail, just one question remains. What is this game even about? Maybe it's a story about lineage,
Fair enough.
and how we shouldn't let our ancestors decide our fate. Or it might be a biting criticism of how religion is a tool used by the powers that be to extract
That was
labor
my
from
call.
the unwitting proletariat. It could be an examination on the nature of truth and how the web of lies we spin will inevitably ensnare us. Perhaps it's a story about the relationship between mothers and daughters, and how mutual love and respect should be shared between them, with no strings attached.
I see what you did there.
Or maybe spiders are just assholes.
Wow, man. That was a lot to take in. So clearly my dumbass didn't pick up the entire plot from just reading dialogue in the game. I also wasn't too stingent on playing my needle in every fucking chance I get, because again, I was recording a let's play, wanted to keep the flow going, you know, didn't want to make every episode 4 hours long. But that is so interesting. Obviously, as you know, every game stands on its own merits and should be judged independently, but you can't help compare Silksong to Hollow Knight. They're so interconnected, and it's just fun to do. Now, what do I think? Which one has better lore? This might come as a surprise to most of you, but sometimes less is more and simplicity is better. I feel like I enjoy the lore and story aspect of Hollow Knight more. I know, put the pitchforks down. This is all subjective stuff. My word isn't the word of God. But that does not to say that this is bad or anything. This was incredible. Some very big revelations here. The biggest question that's unanswered right now in my eyes is what the fuck happened to the Weavers in Hallownest? Why did they leave? Where did they go? If they went back to Farloom, why did they do that just to make that Farsight object? That makes no sense to me. So that's the only thing that I'm a little bit confused about. And again, there's just some more disappointments about lack of lore about Farloom before Grandma Silk. Like, first of all, what was the whole deal with the song? What was Grandma Silk trying to achieve? It's very clear what the Pale King was trying to achieve. He announced it loud and clear. He wanted a kingdom, and he wanted to offer the bugs higher thought. He made deals with different factions of Hallownest. Some were more inclined to join him than others. It all made sense. Here, it's just the motives of these people are a little unclear, especially Grandma Silk. I still don't fully understand what Grandma Silk was originally trying to achieve with the Weavers. Again, like with the Radiance, it's very clear what the Radiance wants. She doesn't want to be forgotten because that's important to Moths, and she wants to be remembered. She was abandoned by the Moths, and now she's back with a vengeance in form of an infection. It all makes fucking sense. Here, it's just some things to me right now don't. And also, I would just have appreciated more lore before the whole Grandma Silk saga about how it was with, I don't know, Crust King Khan and Nihilith. What about Nihilith? I wish we knew more about her. Carmelita we know the most about, I feel. But, I know what most of you are gonna say. DLC. The ever-hanging thread over Silksong right now. Probably multiple DLCs planned in the future. And, with Hollow Knight, it was a similar thing. Mossbag made a lore video of Hollow Knight. That was the first video on his channel. And then he updated that video after all the DLC came out. And just comparing those two videos, you can see that we had so much more insight on the lore of Hollow Knight and Hallownest after all the DLC. I feel like something similar might happen with Silksong. And who knows, maybe we'll get a refresher lore video on Silksong by Mossbag as well. That'd be pretty fucking cool. That'd be dope. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please go check out Mossbag, a pretty small YouTuber. You might have never heard of him. Go show him some support. And I'll see you soon with a new video. Primacon signing out.